Welcome. This video is a video showing the new AdeptAg Smart Boom Controller. In this video, we're going to be going through all its features, the things you can do with it, and think about it from a grower's perspective. But of course, this industry is filled with growers that all have kind of different strategies. And so we want to be respectful to those strategies. And so this option gives you all the options. Let's get started. Hey folks, today we're going to talk about booms. And I wanted to dig into the controller of the new Smart Boom Controller, but I kind of thought that maybe we should start ground level and just talk about booms, boom types, and how that all works and why people use them. So there's, I think, maybe three big things that we want to talk about. We want to talk about prop or propagation. We want to talk about production and application. So growers, of course, are propagating young plants to put into their production. So this is usually a first step to go into production for growing the plants. After we fill some pots, we're going to be planting them up. And then we also have applications. So there's a lot of applications that people would do throughout a crop. Maybe a growth regulator, maybe a fungicide, maybe something either to suppress or to increase growth or foliage. So there's a couple of different things that they might do, beneficials. So those are applications, and nothing does it better than a boom because you can really fine tune that. And we're going to talk about that a little bit better as we get into each idea. But let's first talk about the architecture of a greenhouse. I know this is not rocket science, but we think a greenhouse like so, and we call this a 21 foot, and we call this 300 foot across, right? It's a pretty standard greenhouse out there. Now this is going to vary in length, and then of course, you have the posts, right? The post could be every 12 feet. If it's a Dutch house, every 4 meters or whatever. And so we would call that a greenhouse, right? And we might have maybe a center pathway, right? Center. And so that grower is growing on the left side and on the right side of center. And then we start looking at a boom and we start laying out crops. So typically they're going to have a walkway up the center of the bay that the grower can then look at the crops on either side. And then you're going to start to section it off. So why is it sectioned? Well, it's sectioned because of different crops. I might have geraniums here. I might have petunias here. I might have geranium, which is the same, but it's in 8-inch pots. Whereas these were in 4-inch pots. I might have marigolds. I might have calibrachoa. And so the list goes on and on. And so what we're going to talk about is where the boom travels. This is the travel of the boom. Then we have the crops that are under the boom. And those crops are in a zone. Now, when we talk about greenhouses as a whole, let's just expand this out. Say we have house 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We might call this a climate zone. Climate zone. And so that is talking about all the gutter connected greenhouses that are in one environmental zone that's controlled by PREVA, for instance, or Argus. But then in those 5 houses, we have 5 booms. And under those booms, we start breaking it up into zones where the crops are positioned. So every greenhouse could be a different pattern of layout. There's no, always the same way. This house could be separated here, 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 and there. And we'll just extend our center path through. Right, and we start to see that in this, let's call it a 1 acre zone, we have 5 houses made up of 5 booms with different crops and zoning underneath them. So this is, when we're talking about booms, crops, zones, that's what we're talking about. That's this whole conversation. So when we talk about the types of booms, right? I'm going to jump around here a little bit, and we're going to talk about types of booms. Now, all the booms are essentially the same in what they do. Travel up and down the greenhouse, and off you go. But if we have a boom, if this is our greenhouse end view, that 21 feet again, and we'll just draw a couple of them, 21, 21, 21. We have our dual rail boom that has 2 rails. They're like, I think they're 32 inches apart. And that boom hangs down from the rail and then has a bar all the way across, like so. Whereas, and that would be the dual rail. You could have a tower boom, and that would have a rail on the post row. Rail on the post row. And what it kind of looks like is a TV tower, if you remember the old TV towers, on its side, and from there come the boom arms. The other one would be gantry. And so again, we have those big posts on the post row, but that boom typically is a platform boom. This is something that, the guy would ride on it and look at the crop underneath, and there would be spray arms off of that. Now, always put a belly button on those guys. So those are kind of the big ones, and that can be spread out. That can be, anything from like 12 feet to 42 feet. And they all have that potential. 12 to 42, yeah, I did that wrong. Please forgive me if I misspell or do something like that. That's gonna be me. And this can also be a walkthrough, so that the guy standing here can walk through the center, and we have our booms on either side. They can all be the same. So why does one buy one over the other? So I want to talk about the dual rail boom. It's the cheapest. So let's talk about dollar value. Just like a restaurant, gotta like that. And so this is the biggest bang for your buck. The wider the greenhouse, it's all the same infrastructure. You're just spreading out the boom arms. But what is that gonna look like? If it's in a 42 foot and it's only mounted on like 32-inch center rails, it's going to be like a toddler coming down the greenhouse. It's going to be, you know, a little bit wobbly. And it's fine. It'll irrigate. It'll do everything it's supposed to do, but it's not perfect, right? Enter the tower boom. So I'm doing propagation. You know, I could probably do propagation comfortably on a 21 dual rail, but it probably sucks if I did it on the big range. On the tower boom, that's great, that's great, that's great. It's really stable because it's on the outside rails. And so, you know, that thing isn't going to move or shake. It's going to be dead straight. Here, you can, of course, do the propagation as well, and you get steadier movement. But, of course, now you get the guy on it. And so that guy can now, you know, maybe harvest baskets out of the sky as he's driving by. Maybe he can fix the vents because he's got a safe work platform to get above. So there's a bunch of things that you can do, and then you start talking, and this is kind of interesting stuff. Could I mount a trimmer to the boom and clip my crop? Maybe I could do like an easy cut mounted to the bottom of the gantry, and now I can trim crop without and doing it all automatically. Those are interesting ideas, and that starts to become alive when we start talking about gantry. But there's a dollar value, 5,000 pounds, heavier rails. That's money, money, money. Tower boom is a little less money, but you still got 2 rails, 2 motors, you know, there's some money. Dual rail is going to be the biggest bang for the buck. So those are the type of things that we're looking at. And then we would also talk about our modular boom and our ground crawler. So why do I care about those? Well, they all have their application, right? Obviously, where we have a gutter connected greenhouse, man, that's a really bad drawing. And we have our truss. Then we're mounting our rails on that truss. That's where our normal dual rail would go. But if we look at a place like Plant Odyssey in Texas, or Schaap's greenhouses in Michigan, there's a couple of them that said, hey, I got like 15 houses and all I really need is for the application side of it. Or maybe I just need it for production for several of the houses. That modular boom then connects into the rails and can do that single house, and then can be moved over to the next house and moved over to the next house. So that's where that modular boom kind of comes in. And then that ground crawler is, and we're quoting one to Burgeons, and we've quoted, you know, a number of these to different growers. But, you know, when you're outside, you know, maybe you got 20 feet of crop, and then we just put 2 tracks on the ground, and now that boom comes across, and the boom goes all the way across to sprinkle that, and it can go, you know, 400, 500 feet. So that's a ground crawler. So great for outdoor applications of maybe 4-inch, 6-inch pots. Maybe you have a bunch of different varieties that you still need to cherry pick, right? So we talk about kind of 2 different things. We talk about monoculture or multi, right? Monoculture would suggest it's all mums or it's all geraniums. Same variety, same color, it's all. But multiculture would say, I do have some geraniums, I do have some scaevola, I do have some calibrachoa. They're all underneath here and they all need different attention. And that's where the boom shines. The next thing we want to talk about is propagation. So propagation is kind of unique, right? For you Superman fans, we're going to call it the red sun. Red sun of Krypton. So we have a sunny day and we have our young plants and they're on our benches. We're happy with our benches and we have our boom. And we can sprinkle that and then that's kind of looking on it. And if you look down the greenhouse, right, we start to see all those zones again, right? That's our center pathway. And then we start to see our zones. Usually far more zones in propagation. And so you're sticking maybe geraniums, bacopa, cali, Rebecca. Maybe we got some geranium again. Maybe we got some new, sunshine impatient. Maybe we have some Rebecca again. Maybe we have some, I don't know, why can't I think of this stuff? Scaevola. And we're gonna have maybe some cali again. And then maybe we're gonna have some, let's call it petunia, wave petunia. Petunia, and then here it could be maybe spikes. Anyways, so when we start to look at this, you know, we could have geranium, maybe it's geranium week 1 and geranium week 2. So typically what you want to do is you want to water that crop, and every grower does this, I don't care who you are. You want to wean that crop off. So let's look at geranium, okay? Say geranium takes 21 days. 21 days to mist. So we're talking about a cutting that has no roots on it. We just stuck it in the dirt, maybe an aloe pot, maybe a grow coon, something like that. And we've stuck that plant in, and now we have to get roots on it. And so I talked about this a little bit at a recent meeting. And so there's kind of stages, right? We have the unrooted cutting. We have the calloused cutting. The root hairs. And then rooted. So in these first 3 stages, we're starting to grow that crop. And so we're starting to get a callus cutting is a cutting with a scab on it. Then out of that scab breaks some small hairs, root hairs, fine hairs, and then we start to get roots. And so in those first stages, that takes fresh water only. And really, because there's no way it can get nutrients from the soil it's stuck in, it just needs water to take the heat off, right? It's kind of warm out, the sun is out, ugh. I need something to refresh me until I can get the roots. And so you start looking at the sun we have, the crops we have, and then the prop strategy. And so the prop strategy would then say, you know what, at midnight, so 12 a.m. to, let's see, the sun is up at 6 a.m. And then from 6 a.m. till the sun starts to intensify at 9 a.m. And then from 9 a.m. to kind of over the hump of the day to 3 p.m. Then from 3 p.m. till the sun is low in the sky at 8 p.m. Then from 8 p.m. till midnight again. And so here we have kind of 5 different start times because the day is changing through the day. And so we need to be more on it when the sun is out and less on it when there is no sun, right? So I might say that from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., the cuttings just came in, they're unrooted, they need mist like every 30 minutes through the night. And then in the morning when the sun comes up, maybe every 20 minutes. But in the middle of the day, maybe every 5 minutes. Then as we start going back down, every 20 minutes. And then as we go to bed, every 30 minutes. And this strategy would be strategy 1. And I might change this strategy for strategy 2 as I get to a callus cutting, to strategy 3 as I get to a root hair cutting, strategy 4 as I get to rooted and finishing. And those strategies that I use for geraniums might be mildly different than the strategies I use for sunshine and patience. Follow me? So, my strategy 1 looks like this. My strategy 2 might look like 45 minutes, 25 minutes, every 10 minutes, 25 minutes, or every 45 minutes. My strategy 3, see, and I always do this, I should have started further this way on the board, but I started it on this side. Yeah, I'm going to lose that. Three, 4, 5. I might go 45, 60 minutes, 120 minutes, nothing. I might be 25 minutes, 35, 45, 60. I might be 20, 30, 40, and then I'm back at that 35, 45, 60, 60, 120, and nothing. So I start to develop a strategy. And so as that plant moves along, maybe it took 3 days in unrooted before I started seeing a callus cutting. Now I'm going to move that crop to strategy number 2. Strategy number 3 as I get to the next step. So over the 21 days it takes to root geraniums, I might step through all these strategies. So that is in the controller, and we're going to go through that, and you're going to see that how to program it and how to employ those strategies. Now growers across the country have different words for it. So like a days to harvest or a strategy for propagation. But these are, if anybody has a phytotronics clock. So, sorry, we'll go over here. If anybody has benches and they have a static misting line that mists, and this bench is 100 feet long, that whole bench gets missed at the same time. They can't break it out. And they're usually running that with either the Priva or a phytotronics clock. So the interesting thing is that when you look at irrigation, typically it's turn the valve on for so many minutes and then turn it off. And we have watered it for the day. That's irrigation. But mist is different, because mist, I want to give it a shot of mist, short shot, multiple times a day. And so there aren't too many irrigation clocks that do that. So you have to buy a special clock. And so that's a phytotronics clock. Or if you have a climate control computer, you can also do it in the climate control computer. So I can put, in this case, I can put, all right, another color. Let's use green. I can do strategy 1, strategy 1, strategy 1, strategy 2, strategy 2, strategy 3, 3, 4, 5, 5, 3. So under the same boom, I can give different strategies. So I can mist something that I just stuck and finish something that has been here for a while. Excuse me. And so the boom does that. It's all in the boom. It's all totally programmable, and it's really not that hard. And again, I'm going to show you in a little bit. But that is kind of a really cool feature that I can overlay this in all of that and then over each boom, as in those 6 houses we talked about earlier. But next, I want to talk about something else. I'm just going to get rid of the boom here for a minute, because why not? We'll use blue. VPD. Vapor pressure deficit. So if you go to the propagation talks and the seminars and all they're all talking about VPD, vapor pressure deficit. Now this is an algorithm that was made by Ogilvy back in the 80s, but they patented it and nobody could use it for a long time. Then Priva bought Ogilvy, so they got that information. But by the time they got that information, it had already been out of patent. So GTI came up with their own version, Cherry Creek came up with their own version. They all have their own version of VPD. We can argue that GTI's VPD sucks. It's not real. And Cherry Creek isn't a whole lot better. And so why do we say that? Because they're standalone algorithms. But the computer companies, Argus, Priva, Ritter, Hogendorn, they have that algorithm inside their computers already. And so that algorithm is looking at our red sun for light, heat, and humidity. So what it does is it looks at all of this, boom, 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 and when I hit 100 units of VPD, irrigate. And so on a bright sunny day, I might get to 100 units in 10 minutes. But on a cloudy day, that actually worked pretty cool. On a cloudy day, then my light intensity is down. I might get to that 100 units in 20 minutes. On a dark day, or let's say nighttime, where there's only stars in the skies, it's still going to make up the number between the 2 units left. But it may take 45 minutes to hit the same shot. So you see what I'm kind of doing here? I'm saying that the units of VPD accelerate when the sun is out, when the humidity is right, when the heat is right, and they automatically compensate when some of these things are missing or the intensity isn't as strong. So all this strategy that I have to move the crop along every 2 and 3 days, now I have something that is automatically doing it based on the environment. And who's better to see the environment than the environmental control computer? They're the guys seeing outside. They're the guys seeing inside. They're the guys seeing the anticipatory control because they're connected to the internet. They see the cloud coming, which means we need to start adjusting. But why people are so excited about VPD and propagating to VPD is because this automatically happens, almost like AI. So you can now say, guys, my geranium strategy is 21 days, and at day 1 to 4, that's my units, but at 5 to 10, make that 150 units. At 11 to 15, make it 200 units. At 16 to 21, make it 300 units. Now the computer will go through and at day 4, transition on day 5, transition on day 11, transition on day 16. And in 21 days, it will automatically adjust the VPD to be successful. And it'll keep moving these numbers based on the inputs. It's pretty cool. So to understand that, we can start to see why our boom needs a prop strategy with different strategies, because I may have a grower that only has 2 to 3 benches. And that's enough. They get some flexibility, it's already in the controller, and that's great. But what about that guy that has a Prevo or looking at going to the next level and really wants to understand it? Well, then you got something, because now we can start to tie this to geraniums. And I can tie a different one to Calibacoa. And so in our controller, I can do that up to 7 times. So what do we got here? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different crops. So I could say, you know what? The Cali and the Scavola kind of work the same way. I can fit them into my 7. Now I'm using Argus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm tying that output. Well, you know what I mean. It starts getting kind of messy. So I can either build out strategies, and that works, and it's fine, and I think it'll be very handy for growers. Or I can work out a VPD that's tied to my environmental control computer, and now I got a race car. Now I got something that I can really fine-tune my prop in, and I don't have to babysit it. When we start to look at environmental control computers, we don't have to look at the sun, but propagators still are, if they can't do something like this, or do something like that. The phytotronics clock that I talked about over here, it's simpler than this, it's better than nothing. So that's something to consider. So that's what we're going to talk about when we look at the controller programming. So next we want to talk about irrigation. And so that's simpler than propagation, of course. That's not a problem. We've talked about house sizes and what that all looks like. So let's just, make ourselves a greenhouse again. Let's stick with that 300 feet, just for sake of argument. Let's talk about our center line. And then let's talk about our zones. So we still have that middle walkway where the grower's going to be walking. But really, we're talking about, this is production now. We're growing geraniums for spring. So I might have 4-inch geranium here. I might have a 6-inch geranium here. I might have sunshine and patience. And I might have fern baskets. On the floor. And so this is all on the floor, 4 different crops. But what do we see? Let's call this 14-inch patio planters. So what happens here? 4-inch geraniums are a smaller pot size, so they probably don't need as much water. The 6-inch geraniums probably need more than that. The fern baskets probably need more than that, and the sunshine and patience probably need more than anything. And so, this is broken up into 4 simple zones. That's easy, we don't have to worry about it. But in a boom, we have a couple of things at our disposal. This is the end view of the boom nozzle. So the boom has a spray bar and a spray bar, and we have on the one side typically a mist, and on the other side typically an irrigation. Heavier than light. And so we have that on both sides here. We have irrigation, and we have a mist bar. And we have a right and left. The new controller doesn't care. If you put geraniums and you call 4-inch geraniums a crop and you put the crop here, it just seeks out 4-inch geraniums. If you had 4-inch geraniums here, 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 and there, and you say water 4-inch geraniums, it seeks out 4-inch geraniums. It doesn't care right or left. It's going to figure it out. So that's awesome. That's great. What we need to do is start thinking about how do we want to water that, right? We would use a mist for an application for advanced crops. Irrigation is probably going to be our daily water. So you have a couple things. You have speed. Right? I think we got like 5 speed selections. So what does that mean, right? That means that obviously if I'm using an irrigation and I go slow, I'm going to get a deep watering. If I go faster, I'm going to get a light watering. So that's good. So my 4-inch, I want to select my irrigation. I want to select maybe speed 2, but I only want to go 1 pass. Because if I have that boom come across once at that configuration, it's probably enough water. But the 6-inch geraniums, I probably want 2 passes. They're a little bigger than the 4-inch. The fern baskets, I might want 3 passes. And the sunshine and patience, because they're the biggest, maybe I want 4 passes. Now the controller takes all that information and it does it, no problem. And so it's going to be the most efficient route, and it's going to go. You could even say, I want 30% speed here, 10% speed here, 20% speed here, and 40% speed here. No problem. The boom will see it's in that zone. This is what we've asked it to do. This is the speed. This is the nozzle we've selected. Boom. You can even say that for the geraniums, I actually want mist for the geraniums, but irrigation for the rest. No problem. The controller does that. You just have to pick, when you're selecting the job to do, what nozzle you want to use when you're doing that function. So you start thinking about that. I have speed, I have a speed selection, I have a nozzle selection, I have all these crops. I can do whatever I want in any one of them. I think that's one of the greatest things. Now this isn't unique to boom controllers. I would suspect if it's a a boom controller the last 20 years, this should be easy. No problem. But so that you know, this is what it's capable of. This is why people buy booms, because they can do different speeds, different passes, different jobs. The grower could come out and say, you know what? The fern baskets are getting pretty unruly. They're getting real big. So why don't we make an application and distribute that over the ferns today to growth regulate the ferns. Perfect. I can hang my dosatron on it. I can select the mist. It's an application. Boom, done. Now they got some growth regulator on them, and I didn't have to have some guy out there with a spray hose putting it down and doing it unevenly. Even. We're trying to grow clones, guys. We're trying to grow plants that are the same in the front as they are in the back, so that when our shipping staff goes to ship them, they can ship from end to end, corner to corner, and ship them all. That's how we make money. Buying a boom makes money because we have less shrink, more uniformity, so we ship more plants, so we make more money. That's why we buy booms. Now, there's a couple things we haven't really talked about yet, and now we're really kind of digging deep. Something that our boom does that other booms don't necessarily do. Remember in the last talk, I said we're doing an application here, right? Well, now these boom arms are full of growth regulator. So what's going to happen? I mean, when we water these, we don't want growth regulator on them. That's a problem, right? We need to get the growth regulator at the pipes, because that's what we need to do. So what the boom does is it does have a flush. You can tell the boom that I like you to flush in the main aisle. And so we've said that's at 150 feet. And I can put a protocol in place that after the application is done, switch from fresh to feed and flush in this position. That's sick. This boom will go and it will flush out. Right now, that grower would have to walk with the boom, get it to a spot, hit flush, wait, turn it off, bring it back to starting position, and we're done. But here, we can say, no, when you're done the application, go and do a flush cycle, and then go home and hang out. By the way, we call this home, and we call this away. All it is a little bit of terminology to say, where is the boom, and which direction is the boom moving toward, home or away. We want it to park at home when we're done. Apply, flush, come back. Pretty sexy. Next, we have Smart Step watering. Well, what is that? Well, see in the greenhouse, these are pots. Let's call them 12-inch mum pots or 12-inch patio planters. And so these have a lot of open space around them. They're staggered because you get a nicer, rounder plant rather than putting them in a proper grid, right? And so normally what people would do is they would run a drip line and they put a dripper in. And then that's how they get water. But it's a little bit of a pain in the ass because you gotta do the drippers, do the drip tape, do all of that, and that's crappy. what we did is we talked earlier about our spray bar having a mist head and having an irrigation head. What we do is we take off the head and we put on a directional piece of lock line. You guys are familiar with lock line. That's what's blowing the dirt off the pots. So it's that blue lock line, nothing special, same deal. And so what we do is we set up, we'll just call it the mist bar for fun, that it lines up here. And the irrigation bar lines up here. And the mist bar lines up here again. And so there is 18 inches between those pots, and they go for 150 feet. What happens is the boom moves ahead 18 inches, the mist bar opens, and they all get a shot of water. It just pours in with the lock line. Shuts off. So I want to say, I want a, how do I do this? I want 20% speed at 18-inch centers for a 35-second dwell time. So what's that going to do? It's going to go 18 inches, water for 35 seconds, stop, go ahead 18 inches, water for 35 seconds, stop, go 18 inches. And it's just going to work its way. Smart step watering. It's a great tool to water large plants without putting drippers out everywhere. Because a lot of our customers don't always have the labor to put all those drippers in or to take them out, and how much they break every year. And they also don't know if it's going to have, 12-inch pots this year, but 4-inch pots next year. So all the Smart Boom Controller comes with that logic already in place. It's really cool. What's also really cool is we've all seen these farms. You have black ground cover. Where do I put the pots? It's like a clear open blanket. But if I have it space, dot, 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 I can reduce my dwell time to 3 seconds. Now I get a wet dot on the ground cover that tells me where to plant the plant down. That's sweet. Because now nobody's got to guess, no one's got to drag a hose, nobody's got to stand there and see if they're right. No, that boom is going to go ahead nice and slow. You can just slow the speed right down to 5% if you want. And just stay ahead of the guys laying out plants, and they're boom, 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 boom on the wet spots. Boom, 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 boom on the wet spots. They can pause the boom for a minute as they get another cart ready. Continue, boom, boom, boom on the wet spots. So you can space out a crop way faster with the Smart Step watering. As you go through the process. Pretty sweet. Comes in every Smart Boom controller. It's right there with the watering, the jog, or the Smart Step. Let's get started. Let's move the boom. You're in this screen because you've hit the menu screen. See that the system is off. You're gonna hit the system off. Now you see hand control mode or auto mode. Now you want to go to hand control mode, and now you see a spot where we can do some things. So position is just kind of telling me where things are, where it is, 0 feet, kind of the way that it's programmed, what kind of valves we have, percentage of speed if we want. Flush, this is kind of an interesting feature because we can now, say we're doing a growth regulator or something, and the main line is full and the nozzle bar is full, and we would like to get rid of that water before we start to irrigate. So we can go through a flush protocol, And so we can say that my flush position, I'm going to say, is 35 feet from here. And I know that it takes 30 seconds to flush out the boom. So now at the end of that cycle, I can go to this screen and I can just say run flush. And the boom's going to take off, go to that 35-foot position, run for 30 seconds, and then turn it off and come back. So I think that's pretty cool. I don't think I've seen that in many other boom controllers. So I think that's really important. That when you're using a fungicide or a growth regulator, it's expensive chemical. So you're usually doing it on a dosatron on the boom. And so you're just really flushing out the boom itself, not the main lines coming to it. And so to be able to do that application, then take the bucket off to go to another boom, the grower can just hit run flush cycle and it'll run and do that. The next would be jog. Now jog is pretty cool because it's just simple. You can move it toward home and away. You can pick your speed. You can turn on and off your valves to see if they work or run. And this is something that you would kind of maybe walk with the boom and say, hey, you know what, 10% speed, I'm gonna walk toward away and I'm gonna toggle a valve or not. Or maybe I'm in maintenance and I need to move it out of the way. This would be a spot where, get out of my way, go toward away, I'll walk with it for 15 feet, stop it, and then now it's out of my way. Now you gotta like this. I don't care who you are. I didn't move the camera. Right back into position. Perfect spot every time. That is incredible, if you ask me. It comes back and it's always in the right spot. So we're gonna start building some crops. There's lots of different crops that the industry is using, whether it's basil or other herbs, microgreens, maybe it's small trees, maybe it's spring bedding plants, maybe it's propagation. So for this, tutorial, we're going to think about just spring bedding. But it's certainly not limited to perennial shrubs and all the other crops that are available. I'm just going to go with what I know best. So what we want to do is we want to populate crops. So we're going to add a new crop. We're going to tap the new crop. We're going to clear it. And we're going to put in geranium. Okay. And we're going to pick a color. Let's pick the light green. Save. Now we see it. Light green, name geranium. So I have populated several crops. You can see here. Planters, baskets, 4-inch geranium, 6-inch geranium, regular impatiens. The list goes on, and you can name this whatever you like. Put whatever color you want there. You can go back and edit. See, I spelled potato wrong, but so it goes. So you can just populate all the crops there. Now, I want to say, if you're doing propagation, you might do geranium week 1, geranium week 2, potato vine week 1, potato vine week 2. There's some different things that you might do. This is more for an irrigation standpoint, so we're just going to go from there. Now hit escape, and let's think about our zones. Let's put some zones in there. So this is pretty cool. This is our greenhouse. Now this boom is only 45 feet long because it's in our shop and it's just something to play around with to make sure everything is working properly. But what you want to do is you want to go to row 1 and we want to touch an area on it. Now we're going to see this little boom, this little zone start. You want to hold it and drag. Now we're 10.32 feet. Let's make that zone a little bigger. So we can push that out there. We can hit another one. We have another new zone. Hold it. Drag it out. Hold it. Bump it up against each other. We can tap again. And we can see that we could come out. We might not have anything there. So we could leave a little gap if we wanted to, or we can grab it and pull it all the way. We can go to crop, and now we see all our crops. So maybe I have sunshine and patience there. Oh look, sunshine and patience. Go to this zone, go to crop. I think geraniums will go there, close. Perfect, geraniums are there. I can put that there. I can put my rudbeckia over there. I can go to row 2, tap it, create a zone, drag and drop that zone, drag another one, drag and drop, create another one, drag, create another one. Let's fill it out. Let's give these guys all some names. Let's put some geranium 4-inch there. Close. Let's put some geraniums 6-inch here. Close. Let's put some, I don't know, maybe some baskets there. With that zone left. Let's put some regular impatiens. Close. Let's see all rows. So now we see all of these different zones populated. The colors are in them. It's everything we wanted it to be. Now we have all our zones made and we have those crops within the zones. Let's go back. Time-based triggers. So what's a time-based trigger? We go in there, of course there's none there because the boom is brand new. So we're going to add a time trigger. So this is something that we were going to maybe name, maybe it's for propagation. I've chosen what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some strategies. I'm going to say, I'm going to name it, clear. I'm going to shift. Strategy 1. Love it. So here is a 24-hour clock. So to add a time, so let's say it's propagation. I think that I want to create a new zone. I want to start at midnight. Oh, gotta hold it, drag it, hold it, drag it, hold it, drag it, hold it. So there we go. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 start times. And so if I'm doing propagation, maybe the cuttings just came in. And so it's kind of my strategy 1 for propagation. I'm going to go to here. I'm going to make my intervals maybe every 20 minutes through the night. Then here it's the morning. I probably want to go every 15 minutes. And then here we're going through the midday. You know what? It's pretty, sun's up. It's probably pretty hot. We'll do every 5 minutes that we want that to work. And then here we're getting past 3 o'clock. The intensity is kind of done. So we'll go every 15 again. Okay. And then at night, for nighttime running, let's do every 20. So now at midnight, we're going to go every 20 minutes till 6 a.m., then every 15 minutes till 9 a.m., 5 minutes through the day, then every 15 minutes through the evening, late afternoon, and then 20 minutes through the night again, after 8 o'clock through midnight. I'm going to save that. So this is my strategy 1 time trigger. Chapter 6, watering presets. If we go to watering presets, we can add a preset. So what this is maybe my mist watering type. This is something I'm going to use for propagation. Okay, and when I do that, I use fresh, it's mist. I only want 1 pass when I do propagation mist, and so I'm using my watering tips. It's a watering cycle. It's my mist tips. It's my fresh supply. It's my mist. 1 pass, and I want to go, it's mist, so I like 100%. It won't allow you to save until you've done everything. So that way you don't miss anything before you're done. So let's save. Let's make another one. Let's call this my, deep watering. So let's call it deep. Just to save a bit of time. Okay. My deep watering, I'm going to use fertilizer. I'm going to use my irrigation. I'm going to say my deep watering is probably like 4 passes. Okay. I'm probably going to go slow, 25% watering. That's good. Save. Add a new type. Let's go clear. Let's call this edge of death. Now, why edge of death? Because sometimes you have small marigolds or petunias or something like that, and you want a quick watering, just enough to survive the day, but not enough to soak them out so that they're going to grow like crazy. So we want our irrigation nozzles, and we want to go at 50% speed. And we want a single pass for that. Okay, save. And we can just add a bunch more. Chapter 7, tying it all together. Wow. Now we need auto mode rules. So let's add a rule. So first we're going to check what type of watering I want. I'm going to say I want mist, so I'm propagating. Beautiful. Select. Trigger type. So here you see a couple options. You have the strategies we put on, so we could link that watering type to a strategy. We can say we want to do a manual watering, or we can say that we're tied to our computer with outputs. I know that I want to tie this to the VPD that's on external 1. So I'm going to press that. So I have multiple different things that are happening here. I'm going to say strategy 1, next. And then what crop am I doing that? I'm probably going to do that in my geranium zone. So I can press geranium. I can say next. Now I see what I've done. I have that summary. I have my trigger type, my crop, my zone. Now I can run only, and it'll just go do it for a minute. I can save and run, which means it's going to do it now, but save it to do it in perpetuity. Or I can save only. If I save only, if we go to watering presets, we can add a preset. So what this is maybe my mist watering type. This is something I'm going to use for propagation. Okay, and when I do that, I use fresh, it's mist. I only want 1 pass when I do propagation mist, And so I'm using my watering tips. It's a watering cycle. It's my mist tips. It's my fresh supply. It's my mist. One pass. And I want to go, it's mist. So I like 100%. It won't allow you to save until you've done everything. So that way you don't miss anything before you're done. So let's save. Let's make another one. Let's call this my, deep watering. So let's call it deep. Just to save a bit of time. Okay. My deep watering, I'm going to use fertilizer. I'm going to use my irrigation. I'm going to say my deep watering is probably like 4 passes. Okay. I'm probably going to go slow, 25% watering. That's good. Save. Add a new type. Let's go clear. Let's call this edge of death. Now, why edge of death? Because sometimes you have small marigolds or petunias or something like that, and you want a quick watering, just enough to survive the day, but not enough to soak them out so that they're going to grow like crazy. So we want our irrigation nozzles, and we want to go at 50% speed. And we want a single pass for that. Okay, save. And we can just add a bunch more. So let's tie it all together. So here we have, I think we're going to mist the geraniums. So we're going to press mist. Next. We're going to hit strategy 1. We could do strategy 2. But here we have manual watering. That's going to do it right away. We have our external triggers. This is the climate control computer coming in and saying that I know that VPD is on external 1 for geraniums, but VPD for external 3 is potato vine. So I can check I can say I want it to go with external 2 or the strategy that we selected. So let's go strategy. Next, let's select geraniums. Next. And so we see that we have mist, strategy, the geraniums, that's all good. And I named it prop, why not? And so we have the opportunity to cancel. We can run only. So if we run only, it's just going to do a victory lap right now. If we save and run, it'll do a victory lap right now, but it will also save that program for perpetuity. Or we can hit save only, and that'll say, hey, I'm programming it now, but I don't want it to run now. So I can save it, and that'll put it in the queue. So let's try something else. Let's try another rule. I want to deep water. Next. I want a trigger type of, let's go strategy 6. Next. Let's do that on the Beckia. Next. And let's save that. I like that. That means that we're going to get a deep watering, although that's going to happen every day, every few minutes. That's probably a bad idea. Nah, let's cancel that. That was bad. Let's say we want to add that new trigger. We want that deep watering. Next. We want that just to happen tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Next. The Rebecca. Next. And now that's ready to go. Now, we talked about maybe I want some irrigation in the middle of it. And so we have that prop zone that we did geraniums. Remember that? Why don't we do this? I think it'd be great if the geraniums got a a quick pass. Next. With my midday feed. Next. On the geraniums. Next. Now, you see what I did there? I actually put 2 different programs on the same crop. That's pretty cool. So it's going to mist all day, and then just one shot in the middle, it's going to do a feed. And then it's going to mist the rest of the day. So I get a little bit of fertilizer into it. I kind of like that. I think that's cool. Now, we have other geraniums that maybe just need, maybe they need a deep watering. Next. The strategy is probably for tomorrow morning at 7. Next. And then we have 2 things. We could say geranium, and it'll populate it here. I also want that geranium to go. You know what? I'm looking at the planters. They're looking like they could use a little bit. And I'm thinking maybe the sunshine and patience. Next. So now I see all the ones that I selected. They're all in there. Save only. So now these are set up. You can see that they're enabled. They're set up. Now remember when we talked about maybe this is going to go in perpetuity every day. So maybe tomorrow I come in, it has watered at that 6 o'clock like I asked it, or 7 a.m. like I asked it to. I can see it's happening here. After it did that, I'm just going to disable that. Now it won't run in perpetuity. But the next time I want to do it, I can do that. So when we look at this, we see that we have our auto mode rules, and they're all populated and they're all ready to go. But we see that they're system off. So what we need to do is go to auto mode. Auto mode says that it's all there. I can activate the queue, and now everything that I've queued up is going to start running. It doesn't say that there's a job running because there's nothing to do. We can start to see upcoming. Well, look at that. Looks like there was something to do. The boom took off. This part I quite like because the boom comes back nice and slow into home and right in the same position it was supposed to be. So I can pause the queue. So I'm still in auto mode. I can see that coming. I can look at upcoming. I can see that there's something scheduled to go here soon. It's scheduled. I can go to rules. Now I see all my rules again. And this is where I could do a quick run of something. I could say, you know what, let's do a quick run. And so it's going to say what it was, strategy 1. I can activate it in the queue. Queue is not active, will only be added to the queue. So I can do a quick run. And now that is set to go. You can also look at the history. The history will just show what's happened in the past, what's been completed, what got aborted. So there's quite a bit of information there. Once this thing populates far more, you're going to see a lot more history. But it's a great thing that you can scroll through and just see what's all going on there. So if I go to the home screen, so here system's off, system on. I can go to the hand control mode. We saw that before. If I press away, it's going to take off. It'll give me a big stop prompt here. Then I can bring it home. And so you'll see it as it comes back into home. It stops. So that's nice and clear, nice and easy. And then some of the things that we didn't really look at, or that I didn't spend any time at, let's say, is settings. This is a lot of initial settings that you'd have to put in to teach it how long the bay is and to teach it what the valves are. And so that all happens here. And in general, we can see the alarms again. There have been no alarms, so that's easy. We can see outputs and inputs. So this is where, the external starts would be shown, that they're populated, what this boom all has. Next page, the encoder wheels that are being used. There's some extra ones here for future. So that's kind of cool. So there's lots of room here to open it up. All in all, I would say that there's quite a bit of things that we can do with this. And then we just get a general stats. Now this is really what's going to be great when we get into AdeptAg Plus, that all this starts getting downloaded and seen there. And that we start tracking real history, and people can see that on their desktop. One of the things that I think is really cool about this is if the customer buys a network and they have Wi-Fi, then the network is an extra cost, but it does multiple booms, and then that network is able to see it from your phone or from your screen at your desk, which makes a lot of this programming a whole lot easier. So anybody buying like 5 booms or more, I highly recommend it. And then they can buy an extender in the future for cheap, and they'll just start seeing all those booms show up. So in short, this is a very capable controller. It does an amazing job at tracking, and I think as we continue to sharpen the knife, this will only get better, but the heavy lifting is done. This can compete with any controller that's on the market today, and do a great job. I wanted to talk just a little bit about boom features, because there's a couple things on here that would be great to identify. Right here, you're kind of seeing a sensor, and you see these in other parts of projects, but this sensor is seeing that crossbar. So that crossbar is at every truss, so that's every 12 feet or 4 meters or 10 feet. But all that's doing is saying, hey, there's another truss here. I think I'm at 12 feet, and then the boom confirms, yeah, you're at 12 feet. So that's an addition to any retrofit. We also have the shaft encoder wheel. And so this is what's giving us the position. So as you can see, it's spring loaded to stay on the rail, so that even if the rail is a little bumpy, it'll stay planted on the rail. So that also gets added to every boom. And then we also have our AC motor. We talked a little bit about that, how AC is more repetitive in speed and function than DC motors were, so also a great upgrade. So these are just a few of the things, and this is our sample boom of, as I've said, in our shop. And so here we see kind of the sidewinder or the vertical hose system supports, and we see the E-chain support. We kind of have both on this boom just because we're playing with it. So anyways, in short, not that this video has been anything but short, but I think there's a lot of good things here, and it's a great controller.